well for them. So still lots to discover here in Shadowlands, but we are going to be jumping into
going.
the game. And it will be Reload Esports, forgetting about the Warlock and going with that Retribution Paladin Warrior Shaman against what we thought Blastwave Bros would run. And like Sid said, the track record is indeed in favor of the Shadow Priest Mage, but Reload Esports, if they can hold on, they definitely have the damage to push through.
Yeah, one thing that we don't talk about often enough, in my opinion, and it's probably because we should add it to the UI, is Rep Paladins actually have Blessing of Sacrifice too. It might not be Ultimate Sac, but this might be Bubble as the Polymorph lands onto Lotar. Do they have any follow-up CC? It doesn't look like it yet. Lotar in the middle of the map. I love that he positions himself super close, getting ready to Spirit Link, getting ready to Ascendance at any given moment, but also his positioning, the aggressive positioning, allows him to get the shears, the groundings, and just be really disruptive. And I think that that's exactly what they need against a double caster composition like this. Ratapai also positioning basically across the map as well, trying to avoid CC. And it looks like both teams are just really respecting each other's damage and positioning very safely as we start this game off on the Grand.
We see Lontar in the back left side of the map right now. The strategy for Mercy and Mystic on Lontar's team is to attack whoever is closer to Lontar. And at the moment, that's Livin, but you'll likely see them switch. They're going to go on Frofsy now, as Lontar is now the closest to Frofsy. And that is so that they can allow Lontar to have a pillar to line of sight, and they can kind of push back both spellcasters at the same time. However, here, instant crowd control has been engaged by the side of Blastwave Bros, although disrupted quite effectively by Reload Esports. They're really not getting too much here. This is the combustion, and they're not even getting a dent. This is a great position to be in. And now you can see Reload Esports switch to Livin. Livin is closest to Lontar. Attack him, force him away, or just kill him if he stays on top of Lontar. And this is kind of just the bunker down melee cleave strategy when you're facing double spellcaster that has been very effective. Now Frofsy is the closest one to Lontar, so they're going to just switch immediately over to Frofsy, start chopping him away, maximizing their damage. Here likely switching to Livin. He's now the closest to Lontar, and they can just push the Shadow Priest Mage back and maybe eventually stack them up, which is exactly where they want them. However, now Lontar will have to leave his pillar if Livin and Frofsy continue to pull further back. And he'll be exposed to crowd control. So Lontar right now looks like he wants to go for a Hex onto the Mage, as the Mage is more of a priority crowd control target. Livin is the only one that can remove Hex. Here comes the instant crowd control, but it wasn't crossed on Lontar at the same time, so Lontar could just dispel Hammer of Justice. Now they're not worried whatsoever. They're going to get a lot of uptime on Livin. They're going to get a lot of uptime on Frofsy if they switch over there as well. And it seems like their main goal is to try and win on mana, but weirdly enough, they're actually not winning on mana. Lontar is going to post up here and take the enemy's sides, and they're swapping over to Ratapai here, trying to catch him off guard. Oh, but that Drift Globe core, Ratapai is running Mechanicos' Soulbind, which just unlocked this week, which allows when you dip low health, you will release an area of effect stun. This is super effective if you're a Paladin player because you get bursted down low health a lot, and then you just immediately stun all of the attackers for 3 seconds. So with that, I'm not sure if switching to the Paladin is really going to work out. Ratapai has managed to find a drink, regenerating to full mana, and it is very obvious that the Blastwave Bros are more than prepared to take this to dampening.
Yeah, and that's really what they need to do, right? I mean, for Blastwave Bros, their setups can just be a silence and, a stun. That's all they need to do. And they can burst someone down if they have combustion available. So just survive as long as you can. Make sure you're not getting one shot. Make sure Mercy and Mystic don't have uptime on a target for too long, and Ratapai can maintain his mana. Because the one thing the Shaman kind of struggles with is single target healing later on. You have some emergency cooldowns like the Spirit Link and the Ascendance, but as things start to unravel and dampening gets higher, you can no longer just rely on the Riptide and the Earth Shield, and that's when Frofsy and Livin can really take advantage of that burst. And that's what we've kind of seen time and time again in this matchup. Mystic and Mercy trying to get to the same target right now, but Frofsy and Livin not making it easy, just kiting around, getting Blessing of Freedom. A full Polymorph might go out into Lontar. This is a big setup. Livin, is he going to use the combustion? It looks like the War Banner is going to deny. Nicely done there by Mercy, slowing down the crowd control and forcing Blastwave Bros to kind of just take a second to relax. Livin's going to sit a full Hex, and finally Mercy and Mystic can get some damage rolling here on Frofsy.
This is a crazy amount of awareness from both teams. I know it sounds weird, and it's like kind of a stalemate. Mind Game's almost going off from Frosty. He gets caught in that double fear with Ratapai, but it looks like Livin's okay. But I swear Ratapai's mana is going up while he's healing through this. at times. It's pretty crazy. He's keeping an eye on Mystic's wings, and he's matching his wings every single time. He's going for those holy lights whenever he feels like he has a breath of fresh air to be able to get that, and he's really taking advantage of his beacons to get that holy power generation to use as little mana as humanly possible. Here's the combust, here's the stun, and Lontar's gonna go ahead and trade the Spirit Link. No trinket for the Spirit Link though. He's just gonna trade it, but here's the full polymorph. Do they have any follow-up CC? Doesn't look like it. Wings, baby wings coming out from Mystic. That's a proc actually from his PvP trinket, so it is still very scary, but he's still in a little bit of trouble. He's gonna go ahead and trade out the wall to follow it up, but it looks like both teams, they're not overextending. They're not going to go and push in and try to capitalize on any of this momentum. They're all both playing still for a very late game, and at 7% dampening, it's going to start heating up very soon.
All right, let's see what they can get done here. Blastwave Bros have certainly improved in the matchup. They've maintained themselves defensively quite well and actually gotten Lontar down quite low on mana, but at this point, Frofsy is stunned up. Is Ratapai ready? Connecting a big Divine Favor heal. Frofsy is going to go right back to full health. Lontar has been getting good exchanges with Livin, with Hexes and Winter, but here comes the Mind Games. Very important spell to interrupt when casted on a hybrid like the Ret Paladin that Mystic is playing. You can remove all of that Word of Glory healing and actually turn it into damage for your team. That is going to be the key spell to victory for the Blastwave Bros, is lining up a Mind Games while Lontar is in crowd control during a combustion. Living the target, getting gripped back and away, but Mystic is still connecting a ton of range damage. Now switching back over to Frofsy, really hammering down on him at the moment. Frofsy going to fade out and try and kite. Lontar's pushing forward as we see Reload Esports taking Blastwave Bros' side. Now with dampening kicked in at 13%. It looks like Reload Esports want to get a bit more aggressive. Tries to go for a Hex, but gets denied. Full polymorph. Mind Games. This is the big power play moment. Shadow Crash comboed together. Mystic dangerously low, but it looks like he's actually running the Dwarf Racial. That will allow him to remove Mind Games. I think that is a nice strategical tactic on the Paladin, realizing this is the only ability that can really end me. I'm going to play a race that allows me to just remove it. He's just outright killing Frofsy at this point. Ratapai has to trade out Sacrifice, redirecting damage. It's going to be a lot of redirected damage with a Warrior and a Ret Bladestorming on the Shadow Priest. Ratapai's taking that damage behind the pillar at the moment. Curious to see if maybe they can swap. It looks like they're trying to peel back to Lontar, get it ready to retreat on this attack. Ratapai is still just getting devastated by all that redirected damage, costing a lot of mana just to restabilize. Power Infusion active. Frofsy is loading up in Void form, getting ready, but Livin is stunned up. And they're actually just using stuns on the DPS, maybe just trying to get Ratapai to use mana to dispel it, but Ratapai sits down for a drink. Again, preparing for the late game. Blastwave Bros are ready to go the distance.
Yeah, and I mean, look at Lontar's mana right now, down to about 40%, and this is where the Shaman is going to struggle. At the same time, Ratapai is going to have to really power through. Talking a lot about, the defense Livin and Frofsy have, but Mystic and Mercy, they have a lot of just raw pressure. So Ratapai is going to have to do a good job maintaining his mana, but I don't know how he's going to be able to do that at around 21% dampening. Big damage on Frofsy, forced into the dispersion. No fade, no dispersion. Now super vulnerable here, but they're turning the pressure around on Mystic with a full fear onto Lontar, as well as a polymorph. This is big trouble here for Mystic. Lontar forced to trade out his trinket. Big heal is going to be connecting, and now Mystic's going to try to struggle and get back to his target. Full Hex comes in onto Livin, and unfortunately there's no Hex dispel for him, so he's just going to have to sit that full. Frofsy's still just kind of taking a beating here. Ratapai in a good position to just spam out heals, but you can see how fast he's burning through mana. He was just full mana, 30 seconds ago. Now really having to use a lot just because of the sheer damage Mystic and Mercy have available. Frofsy going to use that Greater Fade, trying to get away once again. I feel like Livin's going to have to try to get some control of Mercy in this situation. Going for crowd control onto Lontar, but they just don't have the burst damage at the moment to take anyone down. And it seems like Frofsy is really struggling to survive in this situation.
Yeah, I like that they're confident in being able to get to the late game, but Ratapai's spamming this mana. And he also had to use those wings when Mystic didn't use his own, but Mystic's getting chopped down, and here we go. The Avenging Wrath gets popped with the Ret Paladin. Divine Toll hits Frosty hard. Bop gonna be used and traded out, and it looks like it's gonna be enough for now. But and it's still not the big wings. He still has his big wings available to him, and there is no throughput available on Ratapai's side. There's the half fear. It hits. Frosty gets a big Wake of Ashes crit onto him. He's gonna fade immediately off a cooldown. Gets kicked on the follow-up. It looks like he's gonna be okay, but I don't imagine Ratapai is gonna be able to do this. I mean, the mana's already close to evening out, and Ratapai got a full drink. This constant presser of Leo Resource is gonna be a huge uphill battle as dampening gets deeper.
Oh, here comes the full polymorph. Mystic has to Divine Shield, just trying to stay on target and get a ton of damage. But now they're swapping to the Warrior, dipping Mercy very low. Lone Tar still in crowd control. Can they finish him? Doesn't look like it. Frosty is now stunned up. Mercy laying in with that Avatar. Warbreaker's coming up pretty soon. Ratapie needs to get ready. They're going to trade out, immediately sacrifice. However, it was prior to the Warbreaker, so that Warrior still has a ton of burst damage available, and Ratapie has burned down all of that mana despite all of the drinks here at 35% dampening, but still double-edged sword. Mystic's healing is going to be reduced as well. Can they get a kill? Who's going to win here in this matchup between Cleave and Caster? Lone Tar pushing forward, gets intercepted by Livin. Dragon's Breath. Intervene, reflect by Mercy on the Polymorph. Nice play, allowing Mystic to restabilize. Livin sheared on Polymorph. Lone Tar trying to get a Hex. Has to line of sight Poly. Doesn't get back to the pillar in time. Full Polymorph. Mystic, no Divine Shield. He will immediately use that medallion in line of sight, but now Mercy could get swapped to out midfield. Doesn't seem like he's too unhappy about it. Still just laying into Frosty, trying to develop any sort of pressure here onto him. But here comes the Mind Games. Rebuked. They're going to immediately Spirit Link the Combustion. I think that's a respectable trade this deep into dampening by Lone Tar. He's more than ready. He's got Ascendance up, but he's struggling still, even with all of the cooldowns. Now Avenging Wrath gets feared away. Mind Games on Mystic. Big damage here. He's not able to use that Dwarf Racial. It's still on cooldown likely from the medallion. Now stunned up. Huge pressure. No Trinket. Where's the Dispel? Lone Tar's just bombing in healing surges, but dampening is so high. Mystic isn't getting topped off. Frosty still has options, but he's trying to just stay on target at this point. End the game. Mystic now has to retreat. Lone Tar's in a polymorph. Mystic's at 30% behind the pillar. Blink Counterspell on the heel. Huge Blink Counterspell by Livin. That is going to close it out. And Blastwave Bros are looking good on that God comp, that Shadow Priest, Fire Mage, Holy Paladin. They have definitely leveled up, I think, since the last time these teams met.
It's one of those things. I mean, you're watching this game, and it really feels like Blastwave Bros is just not in command for most of the game. I mean, they're surviving, Ratapie's maintaining his mana, but it's that deep dampening where all of a sudden you get Divine Shield, you get Ascendance, you get Spirit Link, you get Trinket, and you get all of those within a minute of each other. Then things start really unraveling. There's just no throughput from the Shaman and one crowd control chain. When you see Mystic at 40% health, that's when they can capitalize and end the game. And it's just, when we see this matchup, it always looks like this. The Ret Warrior Shaman looking good. It feels like, they have a lot of pressure, they have a lot of momentum, but you just get to this point in the game where dampening's high and the Shaman can no longer keep up, and Mystic just falls to, one decent chain going out onto Lone Tar. It's just a, polymorph out of a Dragon's Breath. Mystic can no longer self-heal and sustain himself at around 41% dampening. And you can see, Ratapie was full mana, now already down to 5% mana. He just burns through his mana really, really quickly at this point in dampening. So Reload Esports was really close, but this Blink Counterspell onto Mystic will close it out. I will say it does. I always get the feeling that the Ret Warrior can win, but they always lose. So I don't know what that's all about, but you always want to believe, and you can't really blame them for locking it in, but it just the Shadow Priest Mage just always ends up winning these matchups.
When earlier on
what
in the
game, go ahead.
No, that's kind of a good segue to what I was going to talk about. Like early on in the game, you see this mage, and you see like these opportunities. They get the Mind Games, but Warbanner might be down, so they just don't push in. They understand that their win condition comes a bit later, and when that dampening is stacking up high enough, they just seem to get the entire spell book of the Ret Warrior in like just a matter of a couple goes. What to do differently? I do like that this God comp or Shatter play. What do we call Mage, Shadow Priest, Holy Paladin, and Shadowlands? I actually don't know what the name of that comp is. I guess it's Mage, Shadow Priest, Holy Paladin. That's probably the name of it.
I'm boring. That's what I call it. But
it's not boring. It's explanatory.
Basically, I think they need to take notes out of their book. Is what I think. I think they catch the momentum in deep dampening, they force the dispersion or whatever, and then I like that when Lone Tar just pushes in and he just like shoves Spirit Link on Mind Games, and just when they catch that momentum, don't let go of it and play a little bit riskier. Maybe that's the answer. I'm not sure.
Warlock is the answer.
Warlock is the
Maybe Ret Warrior on small maps, and then when Blastwave Bros blind locks a big map, then bring Warlock out or something. I think that would be at least wise to try on one of the swing match attempts here. Probably the first one, so before you get to the last one, if you want to do that. But I feel like I've seen this matchup of Double Caster into Ret Warrior enough where if it's not hook point, I just don't see how they're
Even
going to
if
pull
it
it
is.
off. So I think they're going to do it again on hook point. That's obvious. I don't think Warlock would be wise here. But on the blind pick, maybe they try something else. They have maybe Shadow Priest Warrior too, if they want to utilize that. Maybe even Shadow Priest Ret. I'm thinking outside the box now because I really don't want to see Ret Warrior on Tolvaron where they're just sitting on the box for 10 minutes and then they're just running out into the open, dying miserably
That wouldn't be fun
in
for
deep
anyone.
dampening, and then they lose. It's like, you really want to try that? You want to try to win? You have 5 seconds in a 15-minute game. There's 5 seconds randomly at 50% dampening. You have a 5-second window where you can win out of 15 straight minutes of just you can't do anything. I don't feel like that's the move. I just don't. I don't feel like that's the move. Like, you should play a different comp, like Shadow Priest Warlock. Try something else on the bigger maps. But here it makes sense to just do it, or maybe even Warrior Shadow Priest on this map too, if they wanted to. They're taking their time, which makes me wonder.
Can they stop Ratify drinks as Ret Warrior? Like, I feel like maybe Mercy
No.
can on his.
Not really.
I don't.
Is
think
it too
no.
risky?
It's not too risky.
man.
I mean, I'm sure they can stop some drinks, but eventually you're using so much of your mobility and time. You just have basically Livin's just sitting there. He's spamming polymorphs, Ring of Frost, Novas, and Frost is getting freedomed and fading and running away. I like this. Actually, I think this is a great composition. You can really punish Frosty here. So the thing I like a lot is you have double offensive dispel from Valet and Lontar, so you can go after the mage, but you can also just spam hex the mage. Just spam hex him on cooldown. Valet and Mercy will have a ton of uptime on Frosty, and Valet can actually kind of defend Lontar from crowd control with Mercy. I think Reload Esports has the right idea here. I really like this composition.
All right, well, we're going to have to see if this composition is going to be able to tie these guys up. But the question is, I mean, Suptee, to kind of highlight, summarize what he was saying, even if they sort of win this next game, then it's going to be Blastwave's Bros map pick, and then we're going to be kind of back to square one, and that's really the question of where this series is going to go with these two teams, David.
I'm so excited to see this. I really don't know how this matchup is going to go, but we saw, Warrior, caster, healer in the past, and the Warrior was just such an impactful position with his intervenes on the goes, and this looks like a composition that could take Blastwave Bros even deeper into dampening if they really wanted to. They could be even, because positioning's not nearly as important. When you're on that Ret Paladin, if you are defensive, you are not doing damage. But on a composition like this, you could probably trade blow for blow. You can position yourself in a way where if they're catching momentum, maybe you can punish that by forcing them to come to your side of the map and make Ratify get off that pillar, stop those drinks more efficiently. I just think that this swap, and honestly, looks like a comfort pick with Valet on that Shadow Priest. If you're unfamiliar with Valet on the Shadow Priest, go and take a gander at some of AWC's repository of VODs, because he is a legend on this specialization, and I think that they could really definitely turn this around.
I feel like every team Valet is on, he's like their secret weapon.
Oh yeah,
almost.
Oh, for sure.
Like he's usually kind of the fourth player. Like Shadow Priest just looming in the background, and then they get backed up in a corner and they bring Valet out, and they can do incredible things. So I am excited for this one. How are we feeling about Suptees with the Shaman? How's that going to work? Coinciding with the two DPS specs.
I mean, I think Lontar is just really comfortable with Shaman. Paladin might be better, but even in this matchup, I don't think so. I feel like Shaman is actually pretty effective against Blastwave Bros in general. Just Necro Lord, crowd control immunity now with Fleshcraft and the ultimate form. Grounding Totem, Wind Shear, Root Totem, and Hex is so good into a mage when no one else on the team can remove Hex, that I actually think Shaman has got an edge specifically on this type of composition. And then with the Shadow Priest, they've got great synergy, Mass Dispel whenever the Shaman does actually get crowd controlled, Life Grip to pull out of meteors. There's really good defensive synergy between all three of these specializations. And on a small map where the Warrior can just bounce around and hit whatever, I think strategically this was a really good pick as well from Reload Esports. I'm curious where they go on the bigger maps, but they have to win here on the small one. And Ratify is getting pretty bold out here in midfield. He's going to get stunned up. Frosty is the target. Mercy is the target, though, for Blastwave Bros. Takes a huge hit of damage, managing to recover. I'm very curious to see what Legendary Valet is running specifically. I feel like in a lot of these matchups, the Shadow Priests are opting to run the Shadow Men Legendary which allows their Shadow Men to just stack up over time and do a massive heal, almost topping the target guaranteed. Radopi being targeted a bit here by Mercy and Valet. And it looks like Livin and Frosty have to retreat. Obviously, that Shadow Priest is going to be doing damage across the board to multiple targets, a lot more than the Ret Paladin. So Radopi is going to have to switch from that single target healing to more of an AoE type of healing rotation. And Valet actually sneaks in and gets a double fear. Frosty is isolated. Is there mind games here from Valet? Doesn't look like it. Silence now and Radopi out of the fear on the Avenging Wrath. That was excellently timed. Frosty, though, will now trade Fade. Livin sits through Hex. Oh, that Fleshcraft. Is Lontar going to hit the Dragon's Breath on it? Lontar is immune to crowd control right now. He needs to get back to a pillar, and Livin is just standing on top of him, waiting to polymorph. He gets sheared on the polymorph. He really wants to get this polymorph. Lontar ducks around the corner now. Livin is in a stun. Radopi stunned up. Valet's trying to go after him, but with Avenging Wrath up, I don't think Radopi's team is going to take too much damage here. They should begin to stabilize, and Frosty is just pulling Mercy back. Livin still chasing Lontar. If he gets this polymorph, they could turn around a lot of damage onto Mercy.
That's the spell.
Oh, but that massive spell, excellently timed by Valet.
I like that. The thing is, look at him. He's in a Hex. Not living his best life this game, unfortunately for him. And that's the thing. I mean, if you're using your counterspell on Hexes to try to get control of the Shaman, all of a sudden, Valet can just throw in those massive spells. Really good synergy there. Frosty getting low. They trade out the Sacrifice, and this is kind of the positioning you want. If you're Lontar and Valet, you want to be on top of Radopi, just making sure you can get at your crowd control, forcing him to be a little bit uncomfortable throughout the match. Mana right now in favor of Reload Esports. Pressure, I would say, as well. Livin has his Combustion available, and that's going to be that huge heavy hit to try to get something rolling. But so far, this is working out great for Reload Esports. Frosty's been under a lot of pressure. Lontar now and Ghost Wolf, potential polymorph coming in. Nice backup there by Mercy, and Livin's going to sit that full stun into a Hex, looking for a Ring of Frost. Lontar using great line of sight and roots, and this is what I'm talking about. I mean, this is a really difficult task here for Livin to actually land crowd control. He's got that Combustion, but he just can't get polymorphs on Lontar.
No, he can't. And they're really doing a fantastic job, like, balancing between that aggression and that defensive backup. That Stormbolt was a beautiful play. Ooh, swap going out onto Radopi into the silence. I love that. I don't even know if he has a save by a light available from the Beacon of Light on him. It looks like he's got it now. He's going to be A-okay if he gets lower. He's going to have that basically cheat death in the event. But Mercy's in trouble. He's going to use the Die by the Sword and get around the pillar. That's also the Ascendance on the Shaman. No huge buttons, I would say. Die by the Sword is a pretty big button, but Spirit Link Trinket is really, even Health Swap are the buttons that are a bit more consistent, in my opinion. Mercy getting right back out in the middle of the field, and I mean, that was the most aggression that we saw Blastwave Bros be able to get so far in this game. I feel like Reload Esports, they seem to have a lot of control of the game so far. We're gonna have to wait and see. Frosty doing a great job pulling Mercy back basically to the back of the map. He's like, oh, you want to get on me? Well, you're gonna have to go really far. And Mercy's like, no problem, chunking him down and forcing Disperse. Insane damage coming out from the Shadow Priest Warrior of Reload Esports, and this looks like a completely different team.
Yeah, pressure-wise, it's looking a lot better for them, but defensively, the Warrior is going to be a little bit more fragile, not having the Ret Paladin Word of Glory off heals. So Mercy is definitely a target that can be exploited by the Blastwave Bros. That's what we see right now, trying to drag Mercy out in midfield. Stun, Meteor, gets gripped out of it. Nice utility from Valet. Certainly getting a chance to shine on the Shadow Priest here in the second game.
Interesting. Livin's actually playing Kyrian in this matchup, so he's going to be going for that Radiant Spark, massive one-shot if he can get it off. Unfortunately, he no longer has the ability to really reduce that combustion by too much. And the thing I'm noticing is every time Livin has combustion, Mercy has his Die by the Sword. So I think as long as Mercy is trading that out effectively and not getting caught off guard by the big Radiant Spark one-shot, things should be looking good here for Reload Esports. Frosty taking still a huge hit of damage. Mercy just really ripping in. Mercy doesn't want to get caught too far away from Lontar Valet, though. He really needs the backup of that Shadow Priest Shaman if he wants to remain aggressive in this matchup. Livin putting out massive damage here with the Radiant Spark. Mercy, can he hold on? Die by the Sword trades. Should be enough, potentially. Still getting low. Doesn't want to greet it too much. Still has the commanding shout, but he doesn't use it. Playing very safe. Still has his trinket. Still has his rally. Now getting aggressive here on Frosty. Reload Esports. Although there's been a few scary moments on Mercy, they've always had the cooldowns to trade. If you look, Valet, he has his Trinket, he has Void Shift, Lontar has Trinket Spirit Link, lots of emergency cooldowns left for the side of Reload Esports. They just need to continue this pressure, continue to keep Frosty on the back foot, and I feel like they're looking good in this game.
They got each other's backs, man. Stormbolt stops in the CC, Life Grip on the Meteor. I love the synergy that we see from Reload Esports and a composition we haven't got to see very much. Mercy sees the writing on the wall with the full Hodge on the Lone Tar. Heroic leaps out of there, swap over on the Lone Tar. Big Meteor is going to drop him down to half. Into the Horrify, into the Silence. Huge damage onto him. He's going to get out of line of sight now, but he actually walks away from that encounter without pressing a single, excuse me, he ended up pressing that wall. But Spirit Link is the big button that I'm keeping my eye on, and it looks like he's okay, and it looks like he's just going to continue the aggression. Sky Fury down now, and Mercy is connecting back on the Frosty. He's going to Greater Fade immediately. Horrify on the Ratify as he dispels the Vampiric Touch. No CC to follow it out. As I say that, the Silence hits. Frosty gets into execute range, and that's Dispersion. But the CC chain has not stopped on the Ratify, and this Dispersion is still getting chomped through. Mind Control, putting Frosty in a really bad position.
Oh,
he's out of line of sight of Ratify. Can they get the kill on the Frosty at this point? Right here, right now. Charge stun. He's in execute range. Ratify gets the sacrifice, and Frosty lives. Reload Esports is saying, yeah, you guys won game 1, but wait for the best of 5.
They're looking good on hook point right now, but they need to be careful. Meteor comes in, huge hit of damage. That's going to be the Void Shift from Valet. And despite that play earlier, they almost lost the game, so it's definitely still anyone's match here. Almost 7 minutes in game 2. Mercy died by the swords during that exchange. Frosty now gets low. Ratify bops off. Is that bop dispelled? Valet dispels it immediately. Mercy staying on target. Mind Games attempt by Valet. Ratify is stunned up. Frosty has to fade. Cooldowns are running thin. Divine Favor off to the side. Gets feared up. Ratify has to Divine Shield. Cooldown after cooldown. Shattering throw on the Divine Shield. Door of Shadows to reconnect, but Mercy is very low on health. Popping that Ignore Pain. Earthenwall Totem trying to stay on target. Going for a big Blade Storm. Intervening back to Lone Tar, but it was Ring of Frost. Not able to reflect Ring of Frost. Seems a bit odd. Now in a full stun. Is Lone Tar going to have to Trinket Link here? He gets out of the Polymorph. They're holding strong. Frosty is getting smacked by Valet right now. Huge Shadow Crash. Mercy is confident going into battle stance, laying in some massive condemns onto Frosty. Not much defense remains. 5 seconds away from that dispersion. Ratify needs to buy 4 more seconds. He's in the silence. 1 more second. Frosty now has options. He just needs to avoid being interrupted. He's actually might just have to press dispersion as soon as it comes off cooldown. Mercy is doing a lot of damage. Frosty's right on top of Lone Tar. Getting ready for the attack here. You can tell the Blast Wave bros want to get aggressive. They secure the Polymorph. They secure the Hammer of Justice. They're trying to power down Mercy, but Valet, once again with the Shadow Mend legendary, is able to heal Mercy very effectively. However, double Psychic Scream. Nicely done by Frosty. Mercy is on the run, trying to line of sight, popping Ignore Pain, stunning the Shadow Priest, trying to slow down the pressure. Will Lone Tar be able to recover without the Spirit Link Totem? He's trying to greet it here and recover, but 20% dampening is still quite a bit of healing reduction. Mercy is not back to full just yet. Finally stabilized. Looking to get back on target onto Frosty, but there are a lot of options to trade. Frosty's just immediately going to fade this exchange.
Yep, this is it. Livin, he's got the Combustion, he's got the Radiant Spark. Reload Esports, they have to survive this next go, and the only real cooldowns they have is Lone Tar and his Trinket Spirit Link. So Mercy and Lone Tar have to be close to each other. If Livin gets off a complete Combustion, they're going to lose the game. So be very careful. There it is. Valet's in so much trouble. Uses the Dispersion. They use it on Valet. I feel like that's a huge mistake. He had the cooldowns to trade. Maybe not. He's out of line of sight. Can he live? Livin just pushing in. Getting some damage out. Valet heals himself up. And it looks like they will be able to hold on. I feel like that was the last moment for Blastwave Bros to potentially win the game. And now I feel like Reload Esports, they need to go, go, go. They still have Trinket. They still have Spirit Link. Frosty's on the back foot. Ratify's mana is not looking good. I feel like they finally got themselves in this situation where they can close it out. Mind Games does land. Silence on Ratify. Not going to be able to dispel that. Valet going for a fade. Now no fade, no dispersion. Valet could be a really good target here for Livin and Frosty if they can get a clean setup on him. Hex on Livin. Still great control coming in from Reload Esports, and Frosty's completely on the back foot. Might just get crushed.
That's it.
And he does. Reload Esports tie it up. This composition is looking great.
Wholeheartedly agree. I mean, Ratify did a fantastic job rotating his defensive cooldowns with his team. He had sacrifice there at the end there. I'm not sure if it was ultimate sack. I'm imagining it is. Confirmation, it was. So he could have saved him there, but he ended up trying to greet it, and it was something that didn't pay off. But, you know, I don't fully blame him because they needed some really efficient trades to keep themselves in that game. The aggression from the Shadow Priest Warrior was nuts.
Yeah, I mean, look at this final moment where they tried to swap to Valet. There's still a lot of options, though. Lone Tar has Spirit Link, and Valet pops Vampiric Embrace. He's got Fade. They're feeling confident. They can just go in. They've got cooldowns. They've got options. Meanwhile, Ratipai doesn't have Divine Shield and doesn't have Medallion. So even though he has Sacrifice here, which could immune all damage on Frosty, he gets crowd controlled. And you'll see that with the silence from Valet. And then I believe into further crowd control later on. He needed to get a pre-sacrifice at this point, but it was a really tough call. Valet moves in. Ratipai dispels off dots, likely the mind games, and then Valet just sneaks up on him, gets a fear, and that's all it takes. 3-second fear. It looks like Frosty got reflected on his silence too. That was a little bit devastating right at the end, but that's how quickly things can unravel. Fortunately for Blastwave Bros, though, they don't have to fight on another small map. They can go to a big one. And that's where I'm wondering if the Shadow Priest Warrior will remain in play, or if we see a Warlock.
Can we just give a shout out to Frosty right now? He was trained the entire game by Shadow Priest. He was trained by Shadow Priest Warrior Shaman. It's one of the most disruptive things that can train you, and he still managed to top damage. I mean, this guy has been crushing on that Shadow Priest.
Yeah, absolutely. And now they're going to be tied up. Reload Esports winning game number 2, 1-1 in this best of 5 series. And Supatees is absolutely right, because now it's going to be Blastwave Bros map pick here. They're going to be able to pick something to their advantage. So is that last composition going to work on the side of Reload Esports with that ARMS Shadow Priest? So Supatees, you want a Warlock. What do you think that's going to bring to the table for these guys?
Well, it's more like what you're not bringing as an exposed target. Like the Warrior just running out in the middle of the map is not good. The Warrior is way easier to kill on this map. It's much more difficult for the Warrior to hit anything on this map. So in my mind, I don't think it would be wise to bring a Warrior. And this is the time to test it too. I think on 12 Run Arena. And then if it's abysmal, it doesn't work, you play a 15-minute game and you actually get dampened, not the other way around, which is possible. I could see that happening. Then switch it up. But they're going to stay with it. They feel confident. They feel happy about their play. They think they can overcome the map disadvantage. But it's going to be really tough. What I want to see from Blastwave Bros is just a ton of swapping too. If Lone Tar's in a good spot, they polymorph him in the middle of the map, just switch to Lone Tar. And just maximize their damage. Drinking on this map is also infinitely easier than Hook Point, which is going to be important for Ratipai. And I would imagine both teams are staying the same compositions. They're taking their time, but there's not really any other choice, I think, for the Blastwave Bros. And Frosty is looking good on that Shadow Priest. There's one thing that he's running that I don't think a lot of other Shadow Priests are playing. It's likely because he's playing with a Fire Mage, so he knows he's the target the whole game, is Driven to Madness, which reduces the cooldown of his Void Eruption. So he gets into Void form more frequently. And I don't think I've seen really any other Shadow Priest running this. And Void Eruption's your big hit. It's when you get access to Void Bolt, which he's buffing through his talent build, so he gets 10% more damage on the target. This is likely what's causing him to do so much damage, and it's something that I'm personally taking away from him to try myself. just because... Fun. Well, it's not normal that I see Valet get out damaged, like significantly out damaged, especially when his team.
Oh wow!
His team does, or I guess Valet's attacking a Shadow Resist aura, so 15% of that isn't
right. That's a good.
Isn't
point.
Really Frosty playing better than Valet. It's just Ratipai reducing all of it, but it's still quite significant. I think at least even if you took 30% of that away, it's still a lot more damage. So this Driven to Madness PvP talent seems to be working pretty well for Frosty.
He gave up Health Swapper, aka Void Shift, for that. That's pretty interesting. That's a really big button. I mean, it's a 5-minute cooldown, don't get me wrong, but I mean, at the end of the game there, it could have saved him too. I don't know, that's tough.
All the Shadow Priests I play with, they don't like having to use Void Shift. There's a lot of
they don't like that button
for Shadow Priests. And I'm always like, you need to play Void Shift. What are you talking about? It's
yeah,
you know,
what do you mean?
You get to live, and they're like, nah, we don't play that. I'm like, oh, okay. Sounds good, but this is interesting. Blastwave Bros. I kind of feel like that if there was a moment for Jamie to come in, I actually really think Elemental Shaman and Fire Mage is super strong. It's a better matchup, I think, especially here on Tolvaron.
Yeah,
they can really punish.
Tolvaron makes sense.
Yeah, they can really punish Valet. They have multiple interrupts for him, and then they have the Hex for Lontar as well. If they can actually get hexes. Anyways, we don't at least save this discussion for another time. They are just going to be going with the Shadow Priest Fire Mage. And
we'll talk about it soon.
It looks like Livin will be playing the Kyrian. I think I liked it. Although it seems like the only time Blastwave Bros can win the game is with Combustion. And going Kyrian, although your combustions, hits significantly harder, it just seems like Reload Esports, their 2-minute cooldowns are rotating up really, really quickly. And that's one of the really nice things about playing the Night Fae Mage is you get to desync those defensive cooldowns, which I think is really, really important in a matchup like this. But we'll see if Livin can live the dream, find that one shot. Frosty taking a bunch of damage early on to the silence on Ratipai. Reload Esports getting aggressive, and they managed to pull a sacrifice.
Already, that's freaking crazy. Frosty already on the back foot, basically in his spawn room, and Reload Esports catching a little bit of a momentum after a nice W on hook point, maybe. Polymorph's hitting Lone Tar over and over and over again, but no damage really to follow it up. Looks like Valet or Frosty wants to bring this warrior out way in the open in the corner. This is not where you want to be as a melee. If you're running a melee cleave and someone's pulling you out into this corner, be cognizant that you are being played, sir, because you could easily go down. So Mercy, he's got to be careful, but they did a fantastic job last game rotating through the cooldowns, and they're just chunking through them. No CC needed there, and that's the fade already, Sid.
Lone Tar is playing a build where his Hex basically has no cooldown with the Honor Talent Voodoo Mastery, so he can really give the mage a taste of his own medicine here and spam out hexes and spam out mind controls like Valet and Lone Tar are doing, and it's actually making this map not look nearly as bad. I mean, if it's just a Shadow Priest getting hit in a corner while the mage is sitting crowd control, you don't really mind. This is actually looking really good. They already got Sacrifice. They've now gotten Dispersion. They're winning on mana, and they're just kind of bodying Blastwave Bros. They're just pushing on top of them constantly, just disrupting Livin. We've yet to see Livin even try and go for a combustion yet at this point. It's really just been Blastwave Bros getting set up on over and over and over. Silence now engaged on Lone Tar. Livin still holding on to the combustion. Lone Tar and a polymorph. Are they going to stun Lone Tar? Maybe swap? No, they're stunning up Mercy. Big combustion pop. Valet needs to dispel combustion as soon as possible. Doesn't look like he's getting lucky. Now caught in a double Dragon's Whip, but a Storm Bolt intercepts the polymorph into a full hex by Lone Tar, and likely going to be another hex, another one, and then a mind control, and then a mind control, and you love to see mages getting CC'd. Another hex. Wait,
you don't love that?
There? I love to see this. Lone Tar, keep hexing him. Keep hexing him.
I feel bad for Livin in this matchup. This is one thing I want to look at. So look at Livin's combustion cooldown and look at Mercy's die by the sword cooldown. So let's see how much Livin can get out fireballs, how much he can reduce his combustion, because I get the feeling with all this crowd control going out, it's going to be pretty even. We'll see. Livin does get sheared into another hex. Look at him. He's just a frog the entire game, trinketing out. He's had enough. But a hex. Now he's hexed again. And this, as a mage, this is a situation that literally makes you want to cry. And Frosty's just begging for help to try to get kills going. But Livin just can't help out. Radiant Spark, decent damage here on Mercy, but it is going to get dispelled as Mercy, Valet, and Lone Tar, they're going to pull behind the pillar. Look at Ratipai. His mana is not looking good. Mercy moving forward, wanting to keep him in combat, wanting to keep the pressure up. And Reload Esports with this composition, punishing Livin. He's hexed again. He's just a frog the entire game. Now a Stormbolt over on the Frosty, and there's nothing Livin could do. He gets Silence into Hex, he gets Stormbolt into Hex. Lone Tar with great control. I really like this talent. There is a little bit of pressure here on the Mercy with the Polymorph on Lone Tar. They have the cooldowns to trade. And if you look, Mercy, he's got the die by the sword. Livin, still no combustion. So this is what I'm talking about. If you're Kyrian, he's always going to have that lined up for that moment. It seems like the only time Blastwave Bros is going to be able to win is with that combustion. So needs to try to get some of these cooldowns desynced or just push through it, which is not an easy thing to do.
I think Lone Tar's on DR right now too, so they have to wait a little bit. Nope, still no polymorph onto Lone Tar just yet as the shear lands, and now he gets to put into a full hex. Silence on to Ratipai with the cross CC. He horrifies himself with the dispel, but it looks like that dispel is going to keep Frosty okay for now. Even on this map, Sid, with a lot more drinks available to Ratipai, he is struggling to keep up on mana.
Oh, big swap to Lone Tar, though. That could be definitely a win condition for the Blastoise Bros. I think they should look to exploit that more in the future. But this aggressive strategy from Reload Esports, just running on top of them, spamming crowd control on the mage, is very effective. Look at this. Another fear on Ratipai. Living his wind sheared into a hex. No, the hex was too slow. Lone Tar fleshcrafts the poly right at the last second, though. Immuning it. Nice fleshcraft timing by Lone Tar. Now goes for the hex on Livin. He's going to be stuck in that. Ratipai, no, with sacrifice, dispels off some dots here. But Mortal Strike is up on Frosty. Sharpened Blade. Big condemns. Frosty's trying to retreat away, pummeled now on his cast, finally getting a polymorph onto Lone Star. Mercy trying to pre-banner an incoming stun, not finding it. They're going to kill off that war banner. Valet sneaking up on Ratipai, landing a mind games here onto Frosty. Is Ratipai going to dispel it? Dispel Vampiric Touch and a crowd control. He's trying to hold on to it, let the mind game sit, but now he's silenced. Hex on the mage, triple crowd control. Frosty disperses immediately, but look at the mana difference. Reload Esports are ahead in every single regard, and I think they've solved Blastwave Bros at this point.
So, we were talking about the Elemental Shaman a little bit earlier on. You know what Elemental Shaman has that's great in this matchup is Decurse. So, all of a sudden, Lone Star can't do this and just completely take Livin out of the game. But we'll see. Maybe for game number 4, they go for that. But they're still not out of it. I mean, they have the burst damage. When you have a Kyrian Fire Mage, you really can make miracles happen. Lone Star right now into a Dragon's Breath, potential Polymorph. It looks like it will get shut down. Now the full Polymorph lands. First he's in trouble. He's just going to hightail it out of there as fast as he can. Leaping behind the pillar. Lone Star getting swapped to. Might just get deleted.
Oh
and
my gosh.
This is what I'm talking about. Valet gripped him out of the meteor.
They were ahead all game.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
You're winning until you're not.
You can't count them out. Livin was a hex the whole game, and he had enough. He had enough. He went for the Kyrian one-shot. It landed. That was definitely a Hail Mary. They actually gripped him out of the meteor too, but if you're too slow on that grip, the meteor damage will land, and that's what ultimately completely devastates Lontar. And that has to be a frustrating game, but Blastwave Bros, they're going to be happy to take that one.
Dude, that rage in Livin was building that game. He's like, oh, another hex? Sick, dude. Awesome. Just wait for it, homie. Just wait for it. We'll see what happens at the end of the game.
Hex me again, I dare you.
Yeah, there was a little bit extra damage in that combustion, I swear.
Yeah.
A little bit extra oomph. But that first go, they're like, ooh. Lone Star earlier on in the game, he was in the middle of the map. They made a swap to him with a meteor, and Sid, you immediately called it out. I was like, that has potential. I think they identified the same thing.
Look,
because
here it is.
look at there's the polymorph, just like you said earlier. Said into the Hodge. That grip was like instant. Livin's like,
how did the meteor hit him? There's no way he was in that.
Yes, he was.
Dude.
That's how meteor works. Okay.
Yes, Sid.
I think.
Hey,
no,
Livin was hexed the whole game and still did more damage than Valet, so I don't feel bad
That's
for the mage.
insane.
Okay, so let's talk about this Shadow Priest damage for a little bit because I feel like it's not well represented. Valet is attacking one target the entire game. Okay, he's not dotting Livin and he's not dotting Ratipai. He's only going after Frosty. It's not exactly what Shadow Priest excel at, whereas Frosty, he's going to be trying to attack multiple targets, keep dots up on as many people as he can. So there's a bit of a discrepancy there of 3 targets versus 1 target for the
Is that
Shadow
true
Priest.
though? Valet's getting polymorphed, all the dots are taken off from Frosty. I don't know. I feel like that's not. I feel like both Shadow Priests are playing pretty similar. I think in playstyle. I think they're dotting everyone occasionally, and then the polymorphs are going to remove the dots of the Shadow Priests every once in a while. Like you're not going to just never polymorph.
I don't think Valet is multi-dotting in this game. I really don't. But maybe wrong.
It is interesting that they continue. Valet is continuing to play Void Shift, but I mean that window of burst, I think he played it very well. I think Valet's reaction in that life grip was exactly what they needed, but apparently we were both wrong because they needed a life swap. They needed to press a really big button right then, right in there. And I think that has to do with understanding Livin's build and honestly just respecting that combustion a little bit more than a lot. Here we go.
And
draft started.
Also, if you guys are watching from home, you want to check out their build yourself, what we are currently looking at, you can go to that bottom bar down below and there'll be a link for all of the gear that Livin and everyone else is running. But yeah, D-Machine seems to be definitely working
What
to
is
their
that?
advantage here.
Yeah.
This is what Ven wanted to see,
No,
right?
that isn't what Ven wanted. Ven wanted a mage,
Fire
not a
mage.
Shadow Priest.
Fire Mage, not Shadow Priest.
Oh, okay. I was just looking at Jamie being brought out on his Ellie Priest.
That is
or
peculiar
Ellie
though.
Shaman.
Now Jamie's a
like-
frog all game.
Yeah, that is
on
really peculiar
Dollarian
because,
too.
Yeah, I don't know. That's where Livin literally
Did
was,
Livin and Jamie
the
just
major
not get
component
along
of that burst.
or something? Like, did they
Oh
just
my
not get along with
gosh.
each other? Because I feel like they pick
Jeez,
this. I
let's
feel
go.
like more often than they do Fire Mage Ellie. I'm almost wondering if they just don't like
Why are
playing
you
with each
trying
other or something. I mean,
To be
they're
fair,
kind of
Jamie
talking-
does
There's
have
no
a thing
tea to
against
spill
tongue in
here. Be
cheek.
careful.
I'm just like, what?
Jamie has a dire inner hatred for mages. Anyone
Yeah,
who knows
that's
Jamie
true.
knows
That's
He doesn't even
he
play with
hates
them.
mages.
He just
He
snubs Livin.
refuses.
Like,
I don't know.
I don't know.
I think that
it's
they
time to
want
get
more
over that.
disruption. Yeah. I don't know. But I mean,
I-
didn't
I-
that combustion at the very end of the game kind of end the game for them? That's
you know
peculiar
what?
that they're swapping
I
it up.
don't like taking Livin out of this game because I feel like Livin is
Yeah.
the one that, like, every time they get a kill, it's Livin just one-shotting something. So I don't know. Blastwave Bros. I
Maybe
feel like
that's
this
not
might-
the right way, but you know,
I
they
feel like
want
this
the
is
like an
cooldowns. They
odd
want a straight up
choice.
game.
Maybe Livid just has too much adrenaline pump and rage from the last game.
Yeah, but you
He
can still
needs
bring
to sit this
Jamie
one
in,
out.
and then Jamie
Yeah,
can remove
it's
your
true.
hex.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't know. Well, I mean, we're gonna find out shortly enough here. About 15 seconds left for Reload to choose their composition. This was their map choice
getting
here,
baited?
so I wonder if they're gonna be going back to their melee composition.
are they trying to bait them into Ret Warrior? Like,
Nope.
oh,
Mate.
It's not gonna work. If they
Paladin.
what? This is not.
I
what
don't like this at
expected.
all. You want to know why I don't like this? Because Jamie's effectively going to be a mage here. He can actually just hex Lontar in this matchup. So
Do you think
Mhm.
this
I
is
mean,
ego? Do you think Valet wants to do more damage than Frosty, so he needs Shadow Resist Aura on his team?
No way.
I don't think
No
people
way.
think like that in competitions, Super Team.
Well, some people do, but not this team. I think Reload wants the W. They don't care about that petty stuff. But yeah, this is really peculiar. I can't even understand why they made this choice to go to the Holy Paladin. Do they feel like the Shaman's gonna bring bursts that they can't deal with, or maybe they were worried about, at that last game, Lontar, if he pressed bubble, he would have lived, but he didn't have that. He was the wrong class. Is that's the only thing I can think of is like
so
the big
I think
go.
this is the logic. And so for Blastwave Bros, they don't want small map into Warrior Shadow Priest Shaman again with a mage, because that didn't work out at all for them on Hook Point. That was a miserable matchup. So I think on the small map, they're just opting to bring in Jamie. I don't know. I'm curious why Lontar's playing Paladin though. Why did he switch?
Yeah.
Maybe he wants Shadow Resist Aura for Frofsy, but he can't defend himself the same way as he was on the Shaman. I really liked what he was doing on the Shaman. I mean, he could shear Jamie into hexes just like he was doing to Livin. His grounding totem. Not sure. I don't know if I like it. I have to wait to be convinced, but obviously they picked it for a reason. But I kind of understand why they aren't playing the Shadow Priest Mage for Blastwave Bros. I kind of wish they played Mage Elemental Shaman. I think a comp is really good.
I think they're confused as well. I think one of the teams has used their delay here while they get ready for this game. They've definitely got some stuff to work out before they head into this next game for game number 4, excuse me. But yeah, it's
Another piece of value from the
excited.
Holy Paladin is concentration. What is it? The conduit. What's it? I know, Sid. You have it memorized.
With
you
the fear
monster.
reduction conduit?
Yeah, pure concentration. I mean, that's pretty decent. I mean, looking at Blast
Tremor
Rivers, you have to
Totem. As Shaman.
Yeah.
Just completely remove
Yeah, but you
the
have
fear.
do it preemptively, man.
It's Lontar. That's just normal.
Yeah, look,
Preemptively
he
is
actually-
normal.
Yeah, it's hard to call it out because there's so much going on, but Lontar's tremors are actually nuts. On Hook Point, in the last game, Lontar sees that, like, Livin and Frosty, they're out for blood. They got Mercy low, and Lontar's like, okay, we're all stacked up, and just pre-tremors, like, what would have been the winning fear. And it's just like little plays like that easily can go overlooked because everything's in their face, but yeah, this is different. I mean, they very well could be having Lontar on that Holy Paladin because they know Holy Paladin's in meta. They know it's really strong. Maybe that healer just needs some tournament games on it. The Shadow Resistance Aura is valuable, don't get me wrong. I think that this can work, but a Lontar on that Shaman is just like a masterclass. So this is peculiar to me.
That might actually be a tilt pick. Maybe Lontar actually tilted from that last game. Like, I got gripped out of the middle of the map. We were winning the whole time. I'm done with Shaman. You think? Maybe? Like,
I
I
I'm
don't
interested
know.
to
That
ask
could
them
be.
after the series.
tilt pick, new term. You're interested in what, D-Machine?
To ask them after the series. Honestly,
Yeah.
I'm imagining a lot of these players do explain themselves and talk about their day and talk about the competition often on their Twitter. So if you are interested in following the
Let's
best
go
players
look
in the
at
world, Be sure to follow
He's
all these
tweeting
guys
now.
on Twitter.
Well, a really good place for that, actually, while we're on the subject, is if you go to Healing Stats Twitter. He has the lists of all of the competitors in both MDI and AWC as well. So that's a really, really good place. You can like follow the lists, I think, so you can just see all of the tweets from all of the competitors.
If you're
AWC.
overwhelmed by following everyone, just go follow Healing Stat. That's the play for sure. Or WoW Esports for that matter. But yay, the delay's over.
Go answer that question as well. But all right, it looks like the delay is done. Game number 4 is started. Blastwave Bros versus Reload Esports. Which composition is going to come out on top here?
Who knows? At this point, we're confused by both the picks a little bit, but we'll see. I mean, for Blastwave Bros, they still have that huge hit of damage. The Elemental Shaman, very bursty class, and I think because there's no Hex Dispel for Reload Esports, I feel like Jamie's going to be able to get a lot of crowd control, be very disruptive in this matchup. So in my mind, I feel like Reload Esports kind of played into the strengths of Blastwave Bros composition. But we'll have to see what they're thinking. I mean, the Paladin, I guess, is going to provide a little bit more instant crowd control with Hammer of Justice. So maybe they just want to get more aggressive with that Paladin. We'll definitely have to wait and see, though.
Looks like there is a delay on the side of I'm not even sure which side, to be honest with you.
One of them.
A little technical issue, so we'll be jumping into game here in just a moment. But in the interim, Dalaran Sewers is a map that I notoriously think can go either way. It's one of those maps, like, yes, it's a little bit smaller, but it might be harder to get drinks. It might be harder to do this and that, but there's 2 Holy Paladins in the arena, lots of buttons to trade, lots of Hammer of Wraths to begin setups, especially if you're running the talent that reduces the cooldown of Hammer of Justice every single time you judge. And so I'm anticipating some fast-paced gameplay. I really liked how aggressive this Shadow Priest Warrior came out of the gates last time around, so I'm really hoping to see that again, because it felt like they just completely took control of the game. But again, I credit a lot of that control to like Lontar's awareness, his shearing, his grounding. It's just a lot of stuff that you have to deal with to get a setup going. But we're going to have to wait and see. Elemental Shamans have ludicrous bursts to keep an eye out for.
Who runs out of mana here first?
Oh my gosh. I want to say the Shadow Priest Warrior, in my opinion. Intervene's a great button, but double hybrid? I don't know.
It really depends on the build. Like, I feel like Jamie isn't afraid to run that Earthshield legendary, and then I'm wondering if Frosty will run the Shadowman legendary too, and they'll just play triple healer and try and win in dampening. That's how they've played this comp before when they've played it in the tournament. I personally don't like Earthshield legendary on Ellie unless it's like specifically Rogue Mage Priest, because you lose so much damage not running a damage legendary as elemental that I don't think it's worth it.
I don't. The reason I don't like it is I feel like Warrior is just really effective with Sharpened Blade. When they want to burst, then they have Sharpened Blade. All those healing legendaries aren't going to be that great, honestly. Looks like they are going to be going after Jamie right now. Mercy Valet moving into a good position. Ratify there to back up Jamie, though. Going to be throwing out a big heal. Big swap on Lontar. Mind Blast going to be coming in there from Frofsy. Lontar will be able to survive behind the pillar with his team. Once again, Jamie, Frosty, Ratify positioning, just crossing the map in the early game. It does seem like Blastwave Bros have significantly more pressure, and Reload Esports have been on the back foot.
So far, so good. Panda on to Lontar. Do they have anything to follow it up? Doesn't look like it. Great Warband from Mercy. Half Fear to follow that up because it is DR from the Panda. And it doesn't look like they really have any damage. It's Jamie who's the one who's in trouble with the big damage, is going to force the sacrifice, and Ratify is getting chunked. They swap over onto him with a Horrify, and that's going to be, it looks like just wings for now, but I mean, that sacrifice is a big button that they forced out of him, and it doesn't look like there's any momentum in favor of Blastwave Bros so far against this composition.
Let's see if they can turn it around here. Lontar at the pillar. Mercy stunned up in midfield. Are they going to go for a Dispel here? Lontar dispels it. Delay was cross-hexed. Remember, Hex is going to be super effective against Reload Esports. No way to remove it from any of the players. Jamie finally taking some damage here as Ratify dispelled a Vampiric Touch. Frosty rolling over, though, trying to get pressure. Both Paladins looking to try and avoid crowd control. Tremor Totem removes Ratify's fear. Jamie should recover as a result. Lontar is trying to switch sides here. dispelling off likely a mind games there, trying to stay ahead of the damage, and also just dispelling flame shock. That's why he's doing it. Lontar wants to play AoE dispel.
Oh,
he wants to just spam dispel every flame shock off. That's kind of like the soft counter to Ellie. I'm wondering if it actually works though. If it'll, like, I know that on paper, and I feel like a lot of people say, well, Ellie just loses. If you run Holy Paladin and you just spam dispel, Ellie just loses. I guess this will be the real test of that, whether or not that's true.
Then how does Ellie ever win? It would be my question. We see it win quite a bit, so, and there's a lot of paladins, so I feel like the math doesn't exactly add up in that equation. Jamie right now going to be using Stormkeeper, pushing forward. Silence on a Jamie. Frosty just trying to get control of the game. If you look, Lontar a little bit behind on mana at this point, but sitting down for a drink, should be able to recover a lot of his mana, and that's a great position for Reload Esports to be in. They're kind of pushing Blastwave Bros back. Lontar recovers basically all of his mana. Frosty trying to get into a good position, but it's absolutely getting crushed in this situation. 3 minutes into the game. Mana's about even. Frosty looking for a big Mind Blast here. It doesn't look like it's going to be doing too much with a silence onto Lontar. Mercy getting bursted down a little bit. Back and forth. I mean, both teams with these compositions have pretty good pressure. There's limited crowd control on both sides, so it's going to be a slugfest. I mean, both these teams, a lot of burst damage, a lot of consistent damage, and these Paladins are really going to struggle to maintain their mana.
Definitely. I love Lontar's build. Not only is he bringing Shadow Resistance Aura against the Priest, he's got the Cleanse like we were alluding to earlier to get rid of all those Flame Shocks to stop the Elemental Shaman's momentum. But he's also like running Repentance, so we still like try to go for like those hero hexes, and you just gotta respect that. Full Hodge goes out onto Ratapai. Where is the follow-up damage, the follow-up CC? Full Rep follows it up. They're swapping the damage over onto Jamie with the Stormbolt. Jamie, you know, pulling back, and I'm not sure if this Cleanse the Weak is working so far, but Reload Esports' health bar just looked like a brick wall so far. Silence on the Lontar. He's gonna go ahead and preemptively wall that to prevent any swaps onto him. Valet is actually getting swapped to. A huge chunk of damage there is going to be topped off with a nice Divine Toll from Lontar, and it just seems like this team always has a button available to him. The damage is just completely slowed down on the side of Blastwave Bros. Here's a Stormbolt on the Jamie, silence on the Ratapai, set up from Reload Esports, nice grip from Frosty, but still that's the trinket sack from Ratapai. Another button gone for Blastwave Bros.
Still a clean setup. I like that they're crowd controlling the Paladin and then using mind games on Jamie, preventing all of the healing from the Elemental. I think that's going to be a good combination, likely the winning ticket for them here on Dalaran Sewers. Will they be able to keep up their pressure? Right now, a decent amount, as Jamie is still at half health, trying to reposition. A swap over to Lontar, he's ready for it. And Valet is actually still running the Shadowmen Legendary, which is perfect into these double casters that just burst a target down and then basically do nothing in between those burst windows. Valet can just top the target off on all that burst damage, and Lontar is chilling. And then Valet can go aggressive. So it's a nice legendary build from Valet against this burst damage caster strategy. Jamie falls behind, full Repentance. Oh, the Mind Games is being cast here. Jamie Walls gets around the corner. Lontar is pushing forward. They charge to Frosty for a moment. Frosty's on top of the whole team right now. Curious if he goes for a Psychic Scream. And he does, but it ultimately, is it going to net too much? Doesn't look like it. Mercy is just blade storming, Terminator style at Jamie, getting lightning lassoed around the corner. Frosty gets mind controlled, trinketing before going off the side though. They get the medallion out of the way. Now Frosty can't use medallion and void shift. That was a great mind control, pretty high value. They isolate Jamie and the Stormbolt here. I don't think they've got enough damage to take him down. They do get the frictionless coating Necrolord Covenant Shield. Now Leap, maybe possibly enough damage, saved by the Light and a proc. They strip off Blessing of Protection. Frosty's trying to support with some Shadow Men's. I would say pressure overall is in favor of Reload Esports quite heavily at this point.
Yeah, these dispels are crushing. You are right. Lontar, just you look at him. He's just VT horrified the entire game. They're actually swapping to him. I think this is the only way they really punish Lontar is you have to swap to the Paladin. Gets a big heal there by Frosty. Lontar just immediately dispelling again. Just watch. I want you guys to all just look at Lontar. How many times he gets VT horrified in this match? Because there it is again.
There's another one.
Over and over and over. Dispel, dispel, dispel. But he's actually falling behind on healing. Have to be careful. Big heal coming in from Lontar. Divine Toll topping off the entire team. Play with his Vampiric Embrace, trying to just help out. And it's still pretty even. I'd say Ratapai's a little bit behind, but Reload Esports, they've been pretty healthy. They got a lot of cooldowns. They haven't really been forced back in this matchup so far, and Blastwave Bros is kind of struggling to find pressure against this. I feel like their ticket to success is going to be going after Lontar, trying to get hexes potentially on Mercy and Valet, because if he's just allowed to spam Dispel like this, I think it's going to be a nightmare for Blastwave Bros to get any pressure.
Yeah, they really have silence and sheer. And if you don't know about sheer, it's a great long range interrupt, but it really doesn't interrupt for that long. Here we go. Horrify on the Lone Tar. He pre-walls it into the lasso. What kind of damage do they have to follow it up? Valet doing a great job getting the off heals out when he needs to. And Lone Tar seems to be A-okay. He's so A-okay, he's immediately just going to dispel and get Vampiric Touch horrified again. Stormbolt onto Jamie. That's the sacrifice from Ratapai yet again. And Lone Tar throughout this entire situation, his mana actually went up a little bit. But I like that they're going him. I like that they're focusing on him. And there's the bubble. I think that's the win condition. I think you're right, Elliot. The MD goes off, and Lone Tar's in trouble. Hodge goes out into the double fear, into the lasso. Huge damage available. Valet does have that life swap if he absolutely needs it, but they're swapping it over onto Ratifi with the full rep, and that's going to force the bubble on the other side. And all of a sudden, this game has gone way more back and forth.
Yeah, Lone Tar is definitely a good target if he's going to just be horrifying himself, dispelling Vampiric Touch over and over. So let's see if they can take advantage of that here. Lone Tar still just getting poked by Frosty. No Divine Shield, has a Medallion, but may just die through it. They go for the stun lock, but they get Medallion here. It's going to be critical. Valet jumps off the side to line of sight Wind Shear to go for Shadow Men. Good positioning by Valet. Tons of off heals coming in over there. Ratipai is almost completely tapped on mana. Mercy gets Lightning Lassoed away from Jamie. Jamie's just trying to get distance, but it's quite difficult to kite a Venthyr Warrior, so I don't think he's going to be able to. He gets Storm Bolted. Big Shadow Crash comes in from Valet off to the side. Jamie's feared up along with Ratipai. Tremor Totem comes in with the Medallion. Vampiric Embrace is up from Frosty, supporting the team. They're stable. They're going to go after Lone Tar with it. They grip Lone Tar around the corner, trying to line of sight the incoming Lava Burst by in just a couple of seconds. Valet supporting Lone Tar there quite effectively. Now they're getting aggressive, charging in onto Jamie. Blade storming to immune crowd control, getting right on target. Silence on Ratipai. Is there going to be follow-up onto Ratipai to prevent him from topping off Jamie? This deep into dampening a full fear, and there's no dispel. Stormbolt connects. Mind Games is out. This is the scariest moment for Jamie. Will he be able to survive here? Frosty comes in clutch with that Void Shift, exchanging his health to Jamie, but the mana bar of Ratipai is absolutely ravaged at this point. Lone Tar just needs to survive a couple more swaps. This one right here in particular, very low on health. Valet going to use his Void Shift now as well. It's all about momentum. It's all about tempo. Can Reload Esports keep it and prevent Ratipai from drinking? Mercy is charging forward. Valet is following him. Lone Tar is going in as well. They've got Repentance available. Lone Tar's down at half, though. Frosty is just soloing Lone Tar in midfield at the moment. Big Heal comes in with that Divine Toll. Ratipai is now stunned up into a silence. They've isolated Jamie, but he grips Jamie out of the Shadow Crash. Nice life grip by Frosty. Master Spell on the crowd control. Frosty's playing insane. They connect the Sacrifice, stabilizing Jamie, but it's just cooldown after cooldown. They've got no mana. They could swap to Ratipai with the redirected Sacrifice damage as well. He's got nothing to stabilize. He's praying for Avenging Wrath here. His Saved by the Light's going to proc. He's just dying to a sack dot. He's trying to sit down for some sips of that drink, but a Shadow Crash snipes him around the corner. His entire team decimated. Huge pressure, but Ratipai gets a big Divine Favor just in time to stabilize himself at least, but not Frosty. Frosty is still below half. Ratipai is caught in a stun. Jamie is caught in a stun. They can't support. Frosty's trying to go on a solo mission to kill Lone Tar. Lone Tar denies it with the Divine Toll. Frosty is still rotted down. Jamie is rotted down. They've got defensives, but they've got no mana. How much longer can they cling to life here in game number 4? Lone Tar gets swapped to again, dispelling all of the dots. Frosty just wants to solo Lone Tar, but look at Frosty's health. He's chasing Lone Tar at 2%. He has a Battle Master just in case Lone Tar turns around and hits him with a hammer. Jamie could easily go down. Ratipai is silenced. He's still dispelling. How on earth is this team still alive? Frosty's supporting with the Vampiric Embrace, buying a lot of time actually for his team, sort of restabilizing at this point, but to what end? Divine Shield comes up in 13. If I'm Lone Tar, I just hug that pillar, waiting for Divine Shield and take this game. It's a free win at this point. Jamie's so low. Mercy intervenes to Lone Tar. Lone Tar gets gripped away from a potential swap, maybe even moving in for Aura Mastery. Repentance, just continuing to dispel dots, wanting to stay ahead defensively. I don't know how Ratipai is still going at this point. Jamie will ultimately get crushed despite their best efforts. They're going to set up one more swap, but Divine Shield is there. Reload Esports come in clutch here on Dalaran Sewers, but game number 5 is going to be a big map. Is this composition going to work on a big map? Lone Tar out in the middle of Ashamane's Fall? I don't know if he's going to survive those situations.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really fair question. Reload Esports bringing in that Paladin. At first, it didn't make a lot of sense, but I'd like to see how many times he was able to dispel in that game. If we had that number, I think it would be hysterical, because he was just mashing dispel over and over, and it felt like it was really difficult for the Elemental Shaman, Shadow Priest to really find pressure. I think when we started seeing Frosty just basically going a solo mission on Lone Tar, really trying to punish the amount he was horrifying himself, the game looked a lot better, but just a consistent damage from Valet and Mercy was just so taxing on Ratapai's mana that eventually you get to this situation where no one really has cooldowns left. There's no throughput from Ratapai, 35% dampening. I mean, Jamie and Frosty are doing a great job holding on, but it's really difficult to hold on much longer than this point. However, I mean, if you look at Reload Esports,
No
Lone Tar
mana.
has no mana as well. He's got no mana, so they were pretty close. They had a lot of defensive cooldowns, but with no mana left, they were pretty close to closing it out. But I feel like if you're Ratapai, you can't be asked to really bring the game much further than 40% dampening against this composition.
Yeah, that's not a consistent strategy. I totally agree.
All right. Well, I mean, overall, then, now that we were a little bit confused about both of these compositions, Super T is heading into that game. Now that we've seen a game, how do we feel like those two went?
I mean, it definitely limited Jamie doing bottom damage here, I think. So that's what they wanted to do. Remove the threat of the Elemental Shaman, remove the Flame Shocks. They can't generate Lava Burst. They also don't get the bonus effects on their Lava Burst. It was just effectively a build to just try and take the Elemental Shaman out of the game. It was very effective for doing that. But on a bigger map where it is easy for Ratapai to drink, and on a bigger map where Lone Tar is out in the open for these swaps, I'm not sold that it can consistently work. So I'm hoping that they're not kind of overcommitted to this, because it worked on this map, which was really good for them. But on a map where it isn't good for them, they might need a different option.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll have to see where they go next. It's going to be Blast Wave Bros map choice, up next. D-Machine.
That's me.
David.
Hey.
Where do you think we're going to go? Is it going to be a large map like Sid's saying?
Yeah, I'm gonna say Ashamane's fault because Sid said that, and he's smarter than me. So
It could
that's
be
probably
Imperial Domain.
It could.
It's
it
one
could
of the
be.
two.
It could try to. I don't think either of them want to blind themselves to though. I do want to clarify one thing too. We were talking about the dispels and how impactful they were that game. I just want to read the tooltip of Cleanse the Weak. It's a PvP talent for Holy Paladins. When you dispel an ally within your aura, all allies within your aura dispelled the same effect. So basically, when he gets that, when they dispel, say, VT or even Flame Shock, they get all of the Flame Shocks everywhere. And if you are an Elemental Shaman, you can kind of see how that can be devastating, as that's like one of the main generators of your procs. It's a big deal. So I just wanted to make sure that chat knows why he was spamming and making himself vulnerable with those cleanses.
Yeah. I think we're in kind of an interesting situation where we're not going to see the same composition locked in. There's no way Lone Tar's going to play Paladin again, because if he does, Livin's going to be smiling all the way on that Fire Mage. He's probably going to lock in the same thing. If they didn't lock in Elemental Shaman Fire Mage into that, would be really, really sad, honestly. So I'm curious to see what the map pick's going to be. Looks like it will be Ashamane's, and now Reload Esports, they have a difficult choice. What is their best option? I feel like they kind of got to go with the Shadow Priest, Warrior, Shaman. I really like the Shadow Priest Warrior, but I do not think they can afford to lock in a Paladin, because if they do, there's no way we're going to see Frosty and Jamie play together again. Livin is 100% coming in, and polymorphs are going to land on Lone Tar. There's no question about it.
I think a really good build into Ellie Mage as a Resto Shaman is the Healing Rain Magic Dispel. You just remove Ignite, remove Flame Shock the whole game, stand in it. You can't be polymorphed. I wouldn't actually be against.
How much mana does it cost?
It's not that much if you're just doing it preemptively. It's like you're dropping it like a pre-Earthen Wall. You drop Healing Rain preemptively. You just literally delete the comp. You remove every single thing they do that does damage with Ignite and Flame Shock. It's really effective into Shadow Priest Ellie. Like Lone Tar could have played Shaman and done the same strat as Paladin with the AoE Dispel on Shaman, and then also had the benefit of being able to dispel himself when he's stunned. If he gets Hammer of Justice in Healing Rain, he just removes it off of himself. I think that this particular matchup, Lone Tar should definitely be running that Healing Rain talent.
I'm a bit of a Lone Tar stan, I'm not gonna lie. He totally earned my, yes, the hexes were super awesome, but the repentances were also super awesome. I mean, it looked like it looked like a little bit of a Ron Paul situation. Like his team is eating so many interrupts that he could just get in there and get those repentances, and it forced quite a lot. I love to watch that aggressive healer play.
I feel like overall this year as well, Lone Tar is just having a really good season so far in Shadowlands. He seems to have found a good team that he's found his stride with, so it's cool to see him doing so well.
Yeah, for sure. I'm confused by this. I feel like this has been a weird day of drafts for me so far. Why did Blastwave Bros lock this in now? I mean, they won on Tolveron, but let's amongst us, was it really looking that convincing? I mean, they had the
hell
one shot.
swap. I mean, he had a link.
That can
didn't he?
happen, but I felt like the game was not going well for them at all. I mean, I guess at any point Living can just one shot, but I would not be feeling confident in this matchup.
Imagine you're this
of the game.
Would you rather see Jamie?
Yeah, you bring in Jamie. I don't know why you wouldn't play Elemental Shaman Fire Mage. I mean, maybe they just actually, maybe there's something else going on, or they just really want Frosty in the game. He's like the main strat caller or something like that. But I feel like the Ellie Fire Mage would look a lot better here. You can actually support each other with Hex Dispels. You have the same kind of burst potential, even more burst potential in the matchup. If they go after Livin, Jamie's going to be able to get Hexes on Lontar. If they go after Jamie, Livin's going to be able to get Polymorphs on Lontar. It's just the comp makes a lot more sense to me.
Well, they may know something that we don't as we head into Ashmane's fall here for this best of 5 series. Next game winner is going to be the winner of this entire series. A loser, unfortunately, going to be knocked out of the tournament. Pressure is really on for these guys. This is cup number 3 here, so whoever loses this tournament, that's it that they get in points, and then there's going to be only one more cup for these guys to earn enough points to make it to the top 8 for this region into the circuit series. So nobody wants to go home just yet. It's game number 5. Blastwave Bros tied up 2-2 versus Reload Esports.
Speaking of pressure, I would not want to be living in this situation. Like he made that kill happen, and looks like they're going to be leaving the game. Players, if you are unfamiliar with the rules, are able to actually leave the arena before the gates open to prompt a quick replay. Talents, composition, even races are all kind of enforced to stay the same. But sometimes, stuff messes up and once you enter the gate for whatever reason, it happens.
It certainly does.
Yeah, but I wouldn't even want this smallest amount of delay. If you are familiar with anxiety, especially like stage fright anxiety, the time before getting on the stage is 10,000 times worse than being on the stage. And so I know that Livin is feeling the pressure right now, and to just have to re-queue, I mean, you kind of see it with like the pro players. Like they go for a loss on ladder and they're just like, dude, just don't talk about it, just queue up. And Livin's probably like, guys, just shut up, just queue, let the gates open, let's get this going, because there's got to be a lot of weight on his shoulders right now.
It probably comes with experience too, after playing in these tournaments for quite some time on the LAN as well. You see some of these newer teams show up to the in-person LANs and sometimes let the nerves get the best of them, but hopefully that won't happen today. It looks like the teams are ready to go this time. It is game number 5. Winner of this game wins this series, and now it is Blastwave Bros versus Reload Esports.
All right, it comes down to game 5, Ashmane's Fall, big map. Lontar has been swapped to time and time again. This will be a very easy map for Blastwave Bros to accomplish those swaps. So definitely look on Lontar's positioning. Is he able to avoid the incoming attacks? Both Shadow Priests mirror their Shadow Crashes just to generate insanity and get towards those Devouring Plagues a little bit faster. Mercy charges in towards Frosty. Livin left open, channeling out Fireballs, waiting to make a move. And I would imagine they want to bait a target out in the open, maybe bait a Dispel. Polymorph on Valet. Immediately dispelled. Lontar is taking an aggressive stance here. They get a double Earth Grab into a double Fear. Nice play between Valet and Lontar. Mind Games attempt here on Frosty, but Frosty gets a mass dispel, removing all of it. Now Livin turns the tables with a double Dragon's Breath, but he can't find the Polymorph. He gets Overwatch reflected by Mercy. Mercy with a nice shutdown. Now Lontar wrapping around the corner along with Valet. They're dragging Mercy out into the corner of Ashamane's. They're trying to bait Lontar, I think, off the pillar maybe, or go after the Warrior. They stun Lontar. They stun Mercy. Big Kyrian bust here. Tons of damage under Mercy. Almost not recovering through the die by the sword. I actually thought that might have been lights out, but they make a trade. They will recover. They're getting aggressive now onto Frosty. Ratify dispelling Vampiric Touch, likely a Mind Games. And now with a Ring of Frost on 2 players, nicely placed by Livin. I think there's more than enough time for Ratify to stabilize. Mercy and Valet start getting cut down. Frosty once again dragging Mercy into the starting room. And on these maps that have a room that goes into the back of the map, it's actually really good for dragging melee and getting their healer off the pillar. So I like this positioning from Frofsy. He sees Lontar reposition, so he goes out in the corner. Now Lontar runs out in the middle of the field. Livin could blink in for a polymorph with Lontar out here out in the open. This is really the stress test of the Shaman. Can you land your shears and your hexes before the mage gets a poly on you when you're trying to cross midfield? Stun on Ratapai, hex on Livin, 3-on-1 on Frofsy on match point. He's trying to be greedy, holding on to that dispersion. Mercy's not on target, so he will get away with it. Now leaping in, we see another Radiant Spark outside of the combustion window. Maybe Livin trying to find a bait on a cooldown. Not going to find anything. Divine Favor comes in from Ratapai. Big Hill and Frofsy. Both teams looking evenly matched in Game 5.
You can kind of bait out, make people scared. The Radiant Spark isn't that long of a cooldown, so you do have a few you can just toss out in between your combustion goes. And Frofsy, of course, going to be forced into dispersion. Big pressure here for the side of Reload Esports. This game still looking good, but that's kind of the theme of Blastwave Bros. The games aren't looking too good, and then they just one-shot someone. So at any moment, someone could be taken down with that combustion. That's the main thing Reload Esports really needs to look out for in this match. You need to make sure they have cooldowns. Be talking about, okay, who's going to be trading at this moment. As long as they're well coordinated with that, they have good communication. I do think they can win. This is a scary situation, though. This is how they lost the last game. Lontar just gets caught into the open and a Hammer of Justice. Soaking the Meteor, just so important. So if Valet can get there and basically half the damage of that Meteor, that's going to be really important for the survivability of Lontar. So I like that heads-up adaptation. Mercy getting bursted down as well. Blastwave Bros, when they have that cooldown available, they have a lot of pressure, but now this is where they kind of just need to stabilize. They need to keep Frofsy alive and just try to maintain their mana as long as they can until Combustion's off CD again.
Another Hex lands on to Livin, and that's frustrating. A triple DR Hex to follow it up. One thing I want you guys to take a look at is whenever Lontar gets CC'd, okay, he got horrified on that. Looks like he's okay for now. Whenever he gets a really big CC, like a Poly or a full Hodge, watch Mercy and watch what Valet do. They position themselves so well, whether it's a heroic leap or a life grip, they get out of line of sight immediately and try to give them no opportunity for momentum. And so that's why I really like when they swap on the Lontar. That's really the vulnerable position there when he's out in the middle of the map in that CC. Looks like no damage really from Blastwave Bros. Ratapai positioning himself well to look for some drinks that he absolutely needs as he's already down to half. Lotar sitting pretty at 80% mana. Frosty down to half health now at this point. Into the Stormbolt, he's immediately going to trinket it. And it looks like Ratapai is forced to stand back up and get that Divine Favor heal out and situate Frosty and make him A-OK. Late game not looking good for Blastwave Bros so far, Sid.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not. I'm wondering if they're going to regret not trying the Fire Mage Elemental in this matchup particularly, because at the moment, Reload Esports seem to have it solved, although we said that, I think, on Tolvaron too, right? They were just kind of bodying Blastwave Bros, and then one swap to the Shaman, that's all it takes. And Fire Mages are notorious for that, so you can't count them out. Lontar pre-flesh crafting with that Spirit Walker's Grace. You definitely want to take that play if you're a Shaman player out of his book. Combining Spirit Walker's Grace with an Honor talent to make you immune to interrupts means that Fleshcraft is just 8 seconds of immunity. And you can move while you're channeling it. So as a Shaman, you really want to be looking for those when you have to cross the middle field and you don't want to get polymorphed. You can go immune to it. Now Lontar's trying to cross midfield again, going for a shear into a hex, but ends up trinketing it. Now going for a polymorph. Livin wants to get aggressive. Mercy is the target, but Mercy war banners the polymorphs. Nice war banner there. Valet looks like he's sneaking off to try and stop a drink from Ratapai. And nice denial of that drink. Winning on mana is certainly a win condition for the Warrior Shadow Priest. A lot more constant pressure than the Fire Mage. Ratapai caught in a stun. Frosty is low health. Full fear out from Valet, but here comes the Meteor. Mercy intervenes over, soaking the Meteor and reflecting some spells back onto the attackers. Lontar had an Earthen Wall totem down as well, so it was a good read. Lontar anticipates the attack. Mercy backs him up. They're going to easily just shake off that combustion, continue to go for hexes on Livin, and tunneling down Frosty. A hex now onto Ratapai as well. Lontar is really getting cheeky here in Game 5.
Yeah, I like it too. These hexes are super strong. Hammer of Justice on Lontar needs to be careful, getting a little bit low, but they don't have the damage to actually take him down. Beautiful, intimidating shout from Mercy will shut that down. That great crowd control for interrupt onto Livin into a full hex. Good control. They're continuing the push onto Frosty. Blastwave Bros, they only have a bit more time. I mean, Ratapai has mana down to about 20%. If he doesn't sneak away for a drink, and it feels like Reload Esports is really pressuring him, making sure they stay on top of him, not allowing him to get out of combat. Super critical here for Reload Esports. Dragon's Breath into full sheep onto Lontar. Radiant Spark on Mercy. He's immediately at the pillar. And I feel like at this spot, Lontar is going to be pretty safe. They can't really make a swap onto him. There's no real damage available. Now that he's out of crowd control, Ascendance will be immediately pulled as they continue to make a push with a Hex on Livin. And Valet pushing for crowd control as well. Frosty in some trouble here.
I love that they rotate that. And there's the disperse immediately. Whenever there's momentum on Mercy, he is just gone. And as soon as they can, he comes back out and he gets aggressive, giving Blastwave Bros just no room. And then Valet, of course, stopping the drinks. I just feel like they're identifying every win condition and they're stopping it. But this is big damage onto Mercy, and that is going to be the Trinket Link. And all of a sudden, Blastwave Bros is fighting back into this series. 12%, 13% dampening at this point, and Lone Tar's mana is going to start getting tapped as well. They might even out. We're going to have to wait and see.
That was a nice little, a nice little bluff there by Livin. He didn't even have the combustion. He just used Radiant Spark, and Lone Tar just Trinket Spirit Linked. So now Livin has that one-hit wonder. He can go for it. Reload Esports misreading the situation just a little bit, and I think Blastwave Bros might be able to capitalize on this, Sid.
Yeah, it's definitely an opening here for them, but that opening is closing with the mana bar of Ratapai becoming so slim. They need to set up for a win here. Intervene back by Mercy, trying to reflect the crowd control. Lone Tar's trying to dispel and get away, but Ratapai's charging forward. Where's the hammer? Valet's trying to pre-mass dispel the hammer. Lone Tar tries to pre-fleshcraft it. They interrupt it. They silence the mass dispel. Here comes the Radiant Spark. Could be a one-hit wonder. Valet is bombing in Shadowlands. Panicked to stabilize Lone Tar, having gone down on Tolvaron Arena in that situation, but their positioning was on point. Now they've got crowd control on Ratapai. Frosty is isolated. Will they be able to take him down? Ratapai denies the kill for now with Sacrifice, however, is taking a lot of redirected damage, popping Avenging Wrath to try and stabilize himself behind the pillar. 20% dampening and counting. Ratapai is likely to spend the rest of his mana here in this little burst window from Valet and Mercy. Polymorphs are desperate from Livin. He's using Frostbolt on the Warrior, trying to slow him at all costs, but he does ultimately reconnect to Frosty with a Stormbolt. Frosty's going to dip low to this Blade Storm. Lone Tar's out in midfield, trying to get away from the Polymorphs of Livin. Will he be able to? Windshear on it into a Hex, gets silenced on the Hex. Livin goes for Polymorph again, lands it. Full Polymorph. Mercy pre-intervenes the Hammer of Justice to get behind the pillar and line of sight with Valet. Big heals coming in. They survive another burst chain here, but they need to get aggressive and close the game. They've been doing great denial and great defense, but ultimately they still need to take Frosty's health bar to 0 if they want to win. They're trying to do it here. They get Divine Shield from Ratapai. Frosty is still very low. Holy Light comes in. He's stable. Shattering throw on the Divine Shield. Full Polymer from Lone Tar. Mercy going to pre-dab of the sword. Will dab of the sword be enough? They don't feel confident. Valet uses Void Shift, redirecting his health. And I mean, even though Ratapai is totally tapped on mana, I don't want to count the Blastwave Bros out. They've got Combustion coming up pretty soon, and that could still win the game.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I mean, Mercy, no defensive cooldowns whatsoever. I feel like you just go after the Warrior. There's no Void Shift. There's nothing really. He could be in trouble. Combustion coming up in just a few short seconds. Mercy on the run. Livin just has to be patient. Then this is the thing. I mean, Ratapai's out of mana. Reload Esports, they want to make a push, but they don't really have the cooldowns to trade at this point. They are so susceptible to just being blown up. Ratapai realizing it, he's going to be crossing the map, potentially looking for a drink, and baiting Reload Esports out into the open. Livin, how is he going to set this up? He just needs to get a Polymorph and stop the Mass Dispel and go after Mercy. Looks like a Polymorph on Mercy will go out. I do think the Warrior is the best target. Frosty is getting incredibly low, forced into the Dispersion. And Reload Esports definitely not making this easy, but Livin has to make something happen here, and this might just be it. Big Combustion on Mercy. Is he going to get dropped? And he does!
Oh my
god!
gosh!
They drop him! Blastwave Bros! Livin setting it up, living the dream. 3-2 here, and man, what a back and forth series that was, but that Combustion is just devastating.
Livin La Vida
I think it was that die by the sword. That die by the sword, yeah, he was low, but earlier on, he was matching that die by the sword with every Combustion, like you were saying earlier. I think it was on hook point, right, Ben? And dude, the craziest small opening from these trades. I'm excited to take a look at the replay and see how that all went down, but I really, really, really am impressed by Blastwave Bros. Reload Esports from start to finish looked like they had control of the game.